has time to think about it. And I think this is where ICARE's value proposition comes. We are a growing organization, and if you talk about how much donation is overall, if you think about how much donation is coming from the US, it's a lot.
So, for example, if the Pakistani diaspora abroad, if they are sending charity at home, they will probably be giving to organizations like TCF and Akuvat and EIDI rather than just random people that are in their circle. Pakistan is known to be generous. Pakistan is known to be philanthropic. But in the decades that you and I have lived, I haven't seen a difference in poverty except that the poverty has increased.
I mean, I would say Pakistan is a generous nation, but we need something, in terms of channeling that generosity into an effective program or effective, way you can sort of use that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of All Things Money. I'm your host Fatima Dawala, and my guest today is Hasan Ali, Country Director of the non-profit ICARE. Hi Hasan, welcome to my show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So what is ICARE all about?
So ICARE is a non-profit organization in Pakistan. Actually, we work with two entities. One is ICARE Fund America, which is based in the US, and one is in Pakistan, which is ICARE Foundation. And what we do is we connect donors globally with credible organizations, charitable organizations which are working in Pakistan. So we connect them in terms of knowledge sharing and in terms of flow of capital from right now from the US to Pakistan in terms of charitable giving.
So if I have $1,000, I'm sitting in Houston and I want to give it to an organization in Pakistan, would I go through you? Like as would individuals go through you, or would other organizations go through you?
Mainly individuals. Organizations can also, go through us, but mainly individuals. If you have $1,000, so you will come to ICARE's website and see. There will be, you will find a list of 160 plus credible organizations working in Pakistan, and you can read about them. You can also see how much your $1,000, how much impact they will create. And then you can donate. You can not only donate to one organization, but to multiple organizations through one transaction.
You said credible organization. Who decides that the organizations are credible?
So before onboarding any organization, we do a thorough due diligence of that organization, which we have to ensure that organization is equivalent to a public charity in the US. So we have a list of criteria through which we sort of determine that this organization is kosher in terms of governance, in terms of financial controls, in terms of their board members, and their also program, how robust is their program. So we have a proper scorecard through which we run, we sort of score these organizations, and after that management decides whether to onboard that organization or not. So that's a very thorough process.
For example, I want to start a kitty rescue organization. I have my bungalow, it's a big bungalow, I have a garden, I start rescuing kittens, I come to you and I want to register my organization with you. What would be the process?
So first you have to register an organization itself, like a non-profit organization in Pakistan. So you have multiple options. Either you can register a Section 42 company, which is regulated by SECP, or you can you can register a trust, which is now a provincial matter. So you can register a trust with Sindh Trust Act of 2020, or you can make a society. So first you do that. Once you have a registered entity, and before registering that entity, you will have to bring in some board members who are who can be part of its board. And then this whole process of opening the bank account and everything. Then you come to us. Then we will sort of see, okay, you are a registered entity. You have because you might have registered that entities who might not have the audited accounts or anything. But we look at the audited accounts if organization is older, the PCP certification also, and all these things. After that, okay, we will say, okay, Fatma, we'll onboarding you as an organization, and you can raise funds through our platform.
So I do all that. And when I raise funds, and somewhere along the way, I decide I want a pool. And I use those funds to make a swimming pool. Now, is there any way for you to vet to make sure that I'm not embezzling money?
So as long as your mission and objectives of the organization is aligned with your project. I mean, that's the.
So how do you make sure that the money that people are donating are not going, is being used for the purpose it is said it is being used?
So, to simplify, I would say okay, it's a kind of a 4-step authentication kind of a thing. One is when the time of onboarding, we verify the organization is okay, it has its goals and its objectives are aligned with ICARE's objectives in terms of, okay, they're not doing anything shady or whatever. And once that is done, then before disbursing any money to that organization, we will ask you to provide us a fund utilization plan in which you will describe in detail what you will do with this money, with the budgets, with the rationale, with everything. And after that, you will give us a report after 1 year that this is how it was utilized. And during that, we might sort of also visit you, like a monitoring visit. So this is like, kind of and then we report back to the donor also, so that, the loop is closed.
Okay. So the $1,000 lady in the US will find out where her $1,000 was used.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm assuming you have thousands of donors for small amounts. You have how do you let them know what that specific person's amount was used for?
So basically, as far as our reporting framework is concerned, so we sort of go tier-wise reporting. So we, depending on the amount of the donation the donor is giving, so we how detailed the report will be depends on that. So if it is just $1,000, so it can be, a simple email or, that your donation has been, went to this particular thing, and we'll give them updates about that organization. But if the amount of donation is, so our reporting framework is tiered wise, depending on the amount of donation they have donated. Above a certain threshold, we sort of have a proper donor engagement plan and proper reporting plan.
What is that threshold?
Sorry?
What is that threshold?
Threshold is, so we have like internal threshold of if a donor has donated like $30,000 within the last 5 years in any single year. So it doesn't mean that last year that donor has donated or not, but even if the last 5 years that donor has donated this amount. So we call those donors as our summit donors, and the second threshold is between $8,000 to $30,000. We call them alpine donors. There's a degree less in terms of how frequent or how detailed we will communicate to them, and then there's a base camp donor before under $8,000.
Okay.
So this is how right now.
So like a mountain, you have the summit.
Like a mountain, yeah. Right. So yeah. So that's how we report back, and during the year also, our base camp and alpine donors, we are communicating to them in terms of different stories, different organizations that we're onboarding. So yeah, we keep them informed about that.
So can you give me an idea of the quantum of flows through your organization? For example, how much money flowed through your organization to charities last year?
So we are a growing organization, and if you talk about how much the donation is overall, if you think about how much donation is coming from the US, it's a lot. I mean, it must be in I think millions or maybe $1 billion or something. Not a billion, but in millions of dollars.
$1 billion in charity would change the framework of Pakistan.
$1 billion. That's not from the US, but if you see overall. We can talk about this later.
Yeah, I'm really interested. Do you really think that the charity coming from abroad can touch $1 billion?
So, I'll just do the basic math.
Okay.
Last year, $38 billion came to Pakistan as remittances, right? So, if you just assume that, 1 to 2% of that amount is some sort of charity that flows through institutions like ICARE or TCF or informal charity that is coming to Pakistan. So that amount, you can do the math and see, okay, it's close to half a billion, maybe close to $1 billion, so from abroad, not even in Pakistan.
If I run with that estimate that $1 billion of charity is coming into Pakistan, and yet we have children out of school, we have poverty, we have malnourishment, one wonders where all the money is going.
So that's a thing, because if you see that this is because a lot of charity is informal charity. I mean, people, It's done with the not with the sense of for any for the lack of a better word it's just
For vocational training, for education, for a specific purpose.
for
It's just
specific purposes
given for poverty alleviation, let's say.
so
Short-term solutions.
Short-term solutions, and okay, it's more of like okay, if my mother is thinking about disbursing her zakat money, so she will the first thing that will come to her mind will okay, what about the house staff?
Yes.
It will not come to her mind that she can also donate to organizations like TCF or organizations like who are doing tremendous work in healthcare or education or disability and inclusion, and so so if if by that estimate it is right, $1 billion is coming from abroad as in the form of charity. I don't think so. More than for structured philanthropy, it must not be more than $300 million or so, because most of it is coming as informal flow.
The informal flow, the example you mentioned, the lady of the house giving it to the household staff, the money that is flowing in from abroad for charity, wouldn't that be funneled into organizations rather than, people that they know? So, for example, if the Pakistani diaspora abroad, if they are standing charity at home, they will probably be giving to organizations like TCF and Akuvat and EIDHI rather than just random people that are in their circle. Given ICARE's purpose is to connect donors from the US to Pakistan, I would assume that charity that is coming from abroad would be funded into organization, and charity within home would be given informally. But that is not the case.
So that the charity which is coming through ICARE, this is for that particular
But generally, charity that comes from abroad is informal.
Informal charity. For example, I will transfer money to my brother's account. I'm living in the US and say, okay, you can give it to.
This is my zakat. Just give it to whoever you think is right.
Okay. So we also have relatives who say that. I mean, we tell them, okay, these are also other options, other organizations that you can give to, and they say, okay, whatever you think is best. So it's more like there is not proper thought process around the zakat disbursement, because they see it as a religious obligation, and something you can just get it off because this is something that we have to do every year. Nobody has time to think about it, and I think this is where ICARE's value proposition comes in, because before joining this organization, I would admit that since although I was working in this sector for like more than a decade, but I did not know a lot of organizations who are doing great work in Pakistan, okay, and now think about somebody who is sitting in the US and not related to this industry. They only know a couple of organizations who are big, who have big budgets, who can actually have presence in the US. So they know, and those organizations, and they donate to those organizations, and that's it. Which is a good thing, not saying a bad thing, but there's a lack of knowledge within the diaspora, okay. And there is another thing is the lack of trust, because people want to donate to organizations or individuals who they can trust. People give to people. If I know, usually this is a trend, okay, I know a board member of this organization, so I would like, okay, I know this person, so that's my money would be safe there. They will not do any, and again, there is another thing that people have also. NGOs generally have come into a bad repute. Generally, they might be black sheep there, but okay, generally when it comes to NGOs, they're like, okay, they are not doing good work. So that's also something that's hurting.
No, absolutely. Until unless it's an organization like TCF that I absolutely trust, I probably would think twice of giving my money. I don't know whether it's being used for militancy. I don't know whether it's being used to pay for somebody's Bali vacation. I do not know what this money is being used for. So yeah, that process of vetting and transparency, I think, is also missing in a lot of even big name organizations. Not most organizations like TCF do not give accountability to where the money is flowing in. And again, their own flows are so informal. People just walking in and giving them money. So I think that's a problem that has recurring. Sometimes there are names that I do not name, but I know that their auditing is not transparent, even though they're big names. So in that circumstance, what do you do? There are very big names who do not have transparent audited financials. How do you manage such NGOs?
So if they don't have audited accounts, so they cannot become ICARE partner. because this is one of the requirement for us. I mean, if organizations say we don't want to our accounts to be audited, that's like something deal breaker for us. So we won't sort of onboard them, because we have to comply with two governance structures. One is the US, the other one is Pakistan. So we cannot take a risk with organizations which operate in such way.
So the first generation Pakistanis who still have roots in Pakistan, who still identify as Pakistani, I can imagine them wanting to send money home. But then the second generation, the third generation, would they still identify as Pakistani? Would they still be willing to send funds at home?
So there is I mean, you're right in assuming that there might be, a difference of, in terms of, and, I mean, I was, a few days ago, I was reading Adil Najam's research in which he sort of said something similar to that. I'm not sure what the number was, but, it was around 70, I think 80% of the first generation migrants are donating to Pakistan, but 58% of the second generation and third generation of Pakistanis are donating to Pakistan, which is a drop in the number, the percentage of diaspora population who are donating. And if you see in the next 20 years or 25 years, this population, the right now the older population, which you call the boomer population, they might not be here like 25, 30 years from now. So there will be a different generation and organizations who are working in Pakistan who are banking on, diaspora philanthropy. They also need to, maybe little innovative, or maybe, try to talk to them. Right now, nobody's talking to them. Everybody's talking to the people who can write big checks right now. Nobody's talking to
the ones who are going to inherit the big check. Money.
Nobody's talking to them. Very few organizations have pivoted it in a way, because not only it's one is a sense of identity, because I can relate, because I was in the US last year. I was in New York last year before the Mamdani campaign was going on. I was talking to a lot of people, and I could sense now they are identifying themselves as New Yorker first, then a Pakistani, because they were born there, they were raised there, their problems were closer to New York. They wouldn't they wouldn't relate to themselves with somebody who is living in Karachi or Lahore or Islamabad, because their problems are different. So that's one thing. The identity thing is there, and the second thing is the language that these guys are speaking, in terms of the questions they're asking right now. They're asking about impact. They are asking about ROI, questions that were unheard of in the philanthropy space. But as compared to the questions that the older generation was asking, and there's also change in the perception that is we can see. I mean, for example, disability and inclusion is not seen as sympathy; it's seen as empowerment. That's one progressive thing that we are seeing. And so there are a lot of things that organization might need to
be on their toes to reach to the next.
Connect with these people, so that
and that's where organizations like ICARE come in, so that they can portray that image.
Yeah.
But then again, if you have 160 NGOs, if one NGO wants to promote itself more than the other, so do you charge a commission for that?
No, we don't have a model for that. I mean, we try to create a balance, because we don't want to have favorites. We are there. I mean, we can support them because we are a very lean organization. We are a lean, high impact organization. We understand the philanthropic landscape in the US, and we can advise our charities in terms of how they can build their fundraising capability in the US. We can tell them, phase wise.
But do you plan programs for them for the US as a package, perhaps?
No, we do. I mean, it's not like it's not like something which is we offer.
Okay, it's not part of you offer consultancy, but not like marketing services.
Not marketing services. We do promote organizations based on different themes and all, but we can't say okay, we are promoting these 5 and not these 5. So we try to keep a balance of it. We try to promote programs of if we come across any innovative programs, so we will sort of highlight it. If we see some of our donors are interested in, let's say, AI related or tech related projects. So we would sort of just give them a nudge or give them information that, okay, this is a new organization that has come up, they're doing this very interesting, you might want to know about them. So some things like that, just trying to create that fill that knowledge gap that is there, rather than promoting and filling the knowledge gap.
So in Pakistan, a lot of the big name charities are literally that big names. Like you know them because of their name. And TCF is an exception. Till recently, TCF founders were not in front of the camera. So do you think that the new generation might not identify with Silani, Eid, Chippa, because those names have not grown up with, they're not familiar. For me, Eid is emotional. But once those founders pass away and the next generation inherits, then what then of the organization? Do the flows decrease? Does the second generation diaspora still connect with the big names?
With the big names, I think there's because Edhi and Silani and Shipa, all of them used the founder's name as the organization's name, and and all of
images,
them had not all of them, but Edhi actually had when Edisa passed away, they felt a little bit of shock in the transition years. Now they're doing better, but initially it was a shock there. But it happens because when you associate a name to an organization, then there's a perception, okay, this person is running the show, although that person is not. So we need to also invest in the organizations, institutions also, so that okay, once I mean that's
I think that applies to politics as well. The one name cannot be identified with a party. So there has to be an institution, a legacy, a transition. The understanding that if that person passes away, then the flame will be handed over to the next generation.
Since you have you named TCF, so TCF had done a commendable job in that sense, because they never put face of any of their founders on any of their any of their advertisement or anything. They're speaking now, and that's not that's not
I think there's more of a transparency and raising awareness as to who TCF is and what their vision is, rather than.
And they invested in right kind of people. They invested in right kind of systems.
It's very professionally run.
So professionally run. I mean, that should be kind of a north star for a lot of organizations who are operating in Pakistan, just to rise above the personalities. And sometimes it's difficult for some of the founders. I can understand that, but that's something you think about legacy of the organization and how organization will continue to create sustained impact even if they're not there.
Absolutely. And I think this requirement of people when giving charity to know whether the impact is being made or not, perhaps that can make a difference, because Pakistan is known to be generous. Pakistan is known to be philanthropic. But in the decades that you and I have lived here, I haven't seen a difference in poverty except that the poverty has increased. I haven't seen a difference in education except that the level of education has not improved. So, I mean, if we talk that at least millions of dollars of charity are coming in, why is there an impact not being seen?
I mean, I would say Pakistan is a generous nation, but we need something in terms of channeling that generosity into an effective program or effective way you can sort of use that, because like we were discussing earlier about the formal and informal flow of because some people associate instant gratification as so, okay, we'll feed 1,000 people on the street right now. So that's the old wise saying that teach a man how to fish.
Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish. I was just thinking of that.
So that's the thing that okay, whenever you are I mean personally also when I'm doing my giving, so I think about whether this person will be able to be a zakat giver in a few years or not, or she will be will be sort of budgeting that Hasan will be giving me this money, this much amount of money every year, so I can budget it rather
And then
than
I
doing
just
that.
consume it, rather
Yeah.
than use it to invest and grow. And
So that is my personal view, but okay, in terms of organizations also, I mean, okay, so obviously demand. This is a demand supply thing. If there is a demand for such kind of projects, so there will be obviously organizations coming up and say, okay, we'll do that, we'll do that. So millions of rupees are being spent on that thing, and not saying that's not good, but okay, there needs to be okay, if there's a balance in terms of okay, think about something. If you
not just consumption-oriented charity, but perhaps growth-oriented charity.
So if you're able to dimension the quantum of the the thing is, we're saying close to $1 billion or something just from
I
outside
still
of
find
Pakistan.
that number really,
Right,
really huge.
but if you talk about in Pakistan,
I mean, one
it must
IMF
be.
trench is $1 billion. I mean, we beg for that one IMF trench.
And there was another study in which in Pakistan only 1% of the GDP is a charity money, which is like 2-3 billion. I don't know what's the number, but $2-3 billion. But $2-3 billion in $1 billion this. So it would be it's if you try to dimension that amount of money. So if you were doing anything, like it has to have like control systems and everything. But this is happening here, and if it is structured properly, you can imagine how effective,
how transformative it
can be. Because this 1% of the GDP is for Pakistan. I mean, if you consider its income size, it is a lot. I mean, 1% of GDP if it is going to charitable activity.
So I think if there would be one takeaway from this conversation would be that we do a lot of charity, we just don't do it effectively. That the effective charity would be one, as you said, the benchmark, that in 5 years, 10 years down, this person shouldn't need my zakat. My zakat should enable him to be a zakat giver, say, a decade down from the road.
Yep, absolutely. That should be
our North Star.
That should be the
Okay, that's a very interesting point, Hasan. Thank you so much for coming to my show, and thank you for this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Breathe Pakistan,
a Dawn Media initiative.
Let's weather the change
together.